This is Palantir's stock price. As you can see, it's doubled twice in the past year. And if you'd bought 100 shares on this date, you would have made almost $1,000 in a single day. But here's why Palantir might be set to double again. Palantir is growing their US customer count 55% year over year, increasing margins, making more net income than ever, and launching tons of new products. But the market may still be undervaluing this secretive tech stock. And here's how we might be able to predict the next 50% jump before it happens. I've spent the last week going deep on Palantir, and I noticed a peculiar pattern. Most stock charts follow a general predictable pattern. They rise slowly as the company grows and makes more money, and they drop quickly on bad news. But Palantir's stock price, it's the reverse, with these big 50% spikes in the stock seemingly coming out of nowhere. And since I've always loved how looking at public information is like assembling pieces of a puzzle, and if you put them together right, you can see the hidden pattern that can make you a fortune overnight. So I knew I had to see what was going on. So I had 3 goals looking at this stock. Number 1, understand why Palantir's stock chart is behaving so strangely. Number 2, see why the company's value has tripled in a single year. And number 3, figure out, is there something going on that's going to cause the next 50% spike in the stock price, and how can we get in early? But to solve that first goal of understanding why Palantir's stock price moves so differently from other stocks, rising in huge unexpected jolts, we need to start in Palantir's past. Let me tell you, Palantir's founders are a whole array of colorful characters. First off, you have Peter Thiel, who co-founded PayPal and created the Founders Fund, the first big investor in companies like SpaceX and Facebook. This guy is a multi-billionaire who has access to the most influential people in government, like the most influential. Let's call him the money. Next, we have the brains of the operation. Stephen Cohen was a Stanford University student who Peter Thiel picked up while working at PayPal. Rumor has it, at 22 years old, he coded the initial prototype for Palantir in just 8 weeks. So for obvious reasons, we'll call him the brain. These two built Palantir's original identity as a company, one shrouded in mystery and controversy. In line with Peter Thiel's vision of Palantir as providing data mining services to government intelligence agencies that were maximally unintrusive and traceable. And their first customer, the CIA. Okay, so with that background, we can start to understand why Palantir's stock looks different from a normal company. With a normal stock, everything is pretty much public. There aren't tons of truly secret projects that haven't been leaked a million times before they launch. And so the market usually has some warning before something truly game-changing launches for a company. Hence, a slow rise in the stock price as rumors build, or the company fails to live up to its expected potential. But in Palantir's case, rumors are national security threats. So when an amazing new product comes along and Palantir expects to sell 500 of them in a year, but instead they end up beating that goal in just the next 4 months, investors usually don't see it coming and they buy up the stock as soon as they hear the news. So sure, that explains why the stock price follows a pretty unique pattern, but it doesn't explain why the stock price is up 200% in a single year, or why any investor would buy it in the first place. To understand that, we need to meet the third member of our merry band of misfits, the de facto leader of the band and CEO of Palantir, Alex Karp, the philosopher. This guy is, well, a little eccentric.
I spent every weekend in museums. It took a decade before I could even go to a museum because
it's meritocracy out there. XYZCompanyAI.com. Great. Well, why aren't you doing boot camps?
Karp likes to make very bold claims about Palantir's future. So in 2021, when I first covered this company, the CEO wanted to assure scared investors that the company's bad results at the time were just a lagging indicator of future success. And he was saying how the company's growth would accelerate once macro trends caught up. And over the next 2 years, investors who bought the stock on the day he made that statement would go on to lose 80% of their money invested in the stock. The company also claimed in 2021 that their AI at the time was frankly just a few steps shy of Skynet. And that was kind of an issue. No one believed the CEO because everything he said sounded like your typical technobabble hype that you would see from a small Silicon Valley company. But then November 30th, 2022 came around, and suddenly the world was a different place for Palantir.
Generative artificial intelligence.
Generative AI.
ChatGPT, and BARD, and the rise of generative AI. All right, so 2022 hit, and all of a sudden, the world was a different place for Palantir. Generative artificial intelligence. ChatGPT, 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 and BARD, and the rise of generative AI. All right, so 2022 hit, and all of a sudden, the world was a different place for Palantir. Generative artificial intelligence. ChatGPT, 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 and BARD, and the rise of generative AI. All right, so
What is generative artificial intelligence?
Generative AI changed the face of the tech landscape, literally overnight. Suddenly you had thousands of new startups popping up claiming that they could make you more efficient, faster, smarter, prettier. But amid all this hype, Palantir went to work quietly using AI to supercharge their products used by both commercial and military clients. Let me quickly stop here in late 2022 to explain Palantir's biggest products at this time, so we can understand just how much the AI revolution is about to affect this company. Palantir's three products at the time: Foundry, Gotham, and Apollo. Foundry is basically a super advanced data setup that lets a company or a military or a secret spy agency to organize and use all their secret data. Gotham is a bunch of basically AI plus traditional machine learning tools that help automate decision making in high stakes situations like, I don't know, in the middle of a combat zone. And Apollo lets them use this technology from the middle of the ocean to the middle of the desert. That's Palantir's whole shtick. They help big organizations use their data better, and they specialize in highly sensitive data that's often in hard to reach places. That's why they do so much business with the government, but that's not enough on its own. Sure, you win some big government contracts and you even start to expand into a few other industries that have sensitive data. But that accelerating growth that the CEO keeps calling for is limited by the business model at the time. You need a bunch of really expensive engineers to go to every client, set up your super secret proprietary software, and then you get to pay those engineers mainly by diluting your share price. Palantir at the time is almost operating more like a consulting firm than a software company, and it can't scale quickly without recruiting unreasonable amounts of specialized engineers. This is what I called the Palantir problem when I first was covering the stock in 2021, and it's why I didn't buy into the stock before its price collapse. Okay, but fast forward to today, why am I suddenly bullish on the stock? Well, suddenly Palantir is growing their number of customers at 55%. Profitability is skyrocketing. This looks like a totally different business than it was just a few years ago, and the stock price is rising accordingly. And all of this seems to be driven by this new product that Palantir launches called AIP, a generative AI product that lets them use a combination of rules-based logic, predictive models, and augmented retrieval to replace a lot of that expensive engineering setup. And that sounds kind of complicated, but want me to show you exactly what Palantir is doing and maybe impress your friends? Okay, here's the most powerful concept in Gen AI right now, explained in 30 seconds. Retrieval Augmented Generation, or RAG for short, is a way to use AI to basically do your research for you. Let's say you have an AI and you want to ask it something specific to your company. Well, it's not going to give you a very specific answer because it only knows things that it was trained on from the public internet. But now imagine if the AI could open up every email, PDF, or spreadsheet that your company ever created, pull out the specific document that has the answer to your question, then combine your question with the information from that document to answer your question. It's starting to feel a little bit more like Skynet, and that's actually what companies like Palantir are using RAG for. So now that Palantir can unlock an organization's data without needing to send in a crack team of engineers for 6 months at a time, that uncaps Palantir's growth and profitability, answering our second question for why the stock price has tripled. But that still leaves the third piece of the puzzle, which is by far the most important to investors. If Palantir's big 50% spikes in price are hard to predict and they've already increased so much, is there any reason to think that the next 50% jump is coming soon? Well, yeah, since I asked the rhetorical question, you probably know where this is going. Most of Palantir's growth in the past year has been driven by their commercial customers, basically everyone outside the US government. I mean, we can see it in this chart. US commercial revenue grew 70%, while government revenue only grew 6%. The CIA and military organizations, and even other government bodies like the British NHS, aren't going to jump onto the latest tech trends as quickly as public companies can. But let me lay out what I believe is Palantir's plan to not just sell generative AI to the government, but to create a virtual monopoly on Gen AI tools. So we know at this point that Palantir has deep government roots. Heck, this photo from their last board meeting in Israel looks more like a military council than a tech company. I didn't blur this guy's face, by the way. That's actually how Palantir published this photo. Who is this guy? And why are the directions to the bathroom also blurred? Anyway, we know that Palantir already helps control much of the US government's data with their existing products. And we also know that Peter Thiel, remember the money guy, has specifically said that he wants to own companies that are monopolies. Here's his plan for a perfect company. Launch a new product that doesn't have direct competition. Check. Expand into nearby technologies that don't yet have competition using what you learned from the first product. Check. Keep growing in that stepwise manner until you dominate an entirely new industry that you invented. It sounds an awful lot like what Palantir is trying to do. And look, Peter Thiel's just the money guy, but he has a lot of sway over Palantir. He's the single largest individual investor, holding 7% of the company personally. For context, that's more than Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, and ARK Invest combined. But Palantir's just a tech company. How much sway could they really have over the US Defense Department, which is one of the biggest organizations on the planet, with an entire industry of entrenched defense contractors like Raytheon, Boeing, and Lockheed Martin? How's Palantir going to compete with that? Well, the world order is kind of changing. This is a memorandum from the Deputy Secretary of Defense to leadership at the Pentagon. In it, the Secretary talks about how the department's adaptability increasingly relies on software, and how the ability to deliver resilient software is a competitive advantage that will define future conflicts. I mean, let's be really clear on this. This isn't saying, oh yeah, software is important. This is saying that software will define future conflicts. These words are straight from the leadership of the largest military in the world, saying outright that software will be the differentiator in the continued defense of our nation. And when you hear words like that, it makes you realize that there is a huge untapped potential for making software for defense. And guess who's already in place and ready to act? Palantir. Look, Palantir's got the continually improving earnings. They have the proven track record, and there's a clear path to massive growth by just taking what's already working in the commercial sector and bringing it to bear on the government's problems. That's why I'm going to be buying 100 shares of Palantir today. I don't know, is that ending way too dramatic? I think the stock looks decent. Also, you might like this video too.